UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back on this beautiful Monday night to once again discuss the latest that there is from the world of football here on your favorite football updates channel. It's been a beautiful and tiring Monday, if we are being honest, for starters. But I hope this broadcast will make it much better. I'm trying to test out something with, and it's something to do with noise cancellation because I realized what happened with our recently uploaded video. And for those of you that are not aware of it, we did put out a video on the channel late evening today posing saying why Manchester City will be Arsenal's biggest title rivals. We had a very fruitful, I think I delivered a very fruitful discussion in that, for which you can contribute on by giving your thoughts down in the comment section. But that notwithstanding, okay, still, sorry, within the context of that very conversation, there was some, background noises. My microphone was picking on noises from the outside of my environment, which I thought, turned out to be very, very disruptive. So I'm trying to get used to our new gear over these mics. So I hope we can do better going forward. Anyways, um, let's hope things will be better going forward. So apologies in case you experience any discomforts while listening to that special episode that we did deliver right there on the Football Tribe UG channel regarding Manchester City in the context of the Premier League title following their emphatic victory over the weekend in as far as the Premier League is concerned. So really, I really thought it was a discussion worth having sooner rather than later. And for those of you that will be, watching it, like I said, kindly do me the absolute honor and let me know what your thoughts are on that video or on those thoughts that we did submit in that broadcast or in that video. So then, so we'll be looking at the lessons we got from the weekend. We'll also be taking a look at, we know it's the international break, so there's not going to be plenty of action in terms of club football not coming our way. But also, it's that period of time when we get to when we get to reflect on what the season is like, the different aspects of the season. We get to reflect on that and see our predictions that we made at the start of the season. Are they still in alignment to where the table looks to shape, to where the table looks, to what the table looks like? Are they too far off? Of course, given that it is only 11 games, our predictions could still leave the manifestation of that. Hi, Pedri. How are you, my brother? It's good to have you. You've been off for a while. What's good? Not much. Beside us getting, some new microphones to improve on our audio experience in as far as this channel is concerned. At least that's some good news. Then we have a better tripod. It's yet incomplete. I'm still looking for much better phone clips because the ones that I do have contributed to the spoiling of my phone that I used to broadcast to you. So I'm still trying to find a solution for that. Then the other thing I'm trying to look for is black. So you say, how are you, Mr. Tribe of Kampala, Uganda, Barcelona fan, and you live Pedri? Good. Anyway, I see you in a jolly mode, following what did transpire in the weekend, winning your game and then helping you close on the gap on Real Madrid, who had shared the spoils in a goalless draw against Rayo Vallecano. So I completely understand you being in that sort of mode, really, for starters. But also, you said, did you cry? Because I did cry. Why did you cry? What made you cry? Tears of joy, or what? What is it that made you cry during the course of the weekend? Let us know. Personally, there was nothing to tear me down. But I always have that sort of uneasiness about an international break on the horizon. I think I do not get to enjoy the games as much as when I know that sooner the action is going to be resuming. That you get to play this game and then quickly pick up the slack and move on, win or lose or draw, whatever the case is. Now, most clubs will tell you, especially the big clubs, perhaps even the mid-table teams or otherwise, they'll tell you that one of the worst things that can happen to you during the course of a season is going into a weekend with on the back of a bad result, and then you head into an international break. Because if you're a team like Barcelona, if you're a team like Real Madrid, you're going to get scrutinized for the next 2 weeks, from literally a fiber to fiber. You say, I cried because I saw Messi in the Camp Nou. Well, congratulations about the Camp Nou itself, and maybe to you seeing Messi around. Do you reckon he's going to play at the Camp Nou once again? Because usually we know that the MSL, that's the Major League Soccer, is off during January. And usually during that month, for a player that wants to be a part of Argentina's World Cup story, come 2026, you're hoping that maybe as part of his journey to stay fit in that zone would be to be part of to get a team that will be playing football during that period. So do you reckon he will return to the Camp Nou, Pedri? I'm so excited for the international break. I think you should watch it as well, because it will be so competitive now, because the World Cup draw is in 2 weeks' time. I think he can be loaned for 3 months, maybe. I'm not sure it makes 3 months, but usually is it about a month and a half or 2 or thereabouts? Okay, but whichever the case is, for me, I remember this was sometime during the course of the summer. He was being linked with a potential move to Arsenal during the same said period, and then of course there were reports for Barcelona, and with Barcelona, I completely wouldn't be surprised. I mean, that's a club where he made his name and everything with that. In regards to Arsenal, I do not know whether it was more wishful than plausible, but you can never say never in football. Maybe perhaps it's the only window he gets to play some Premier League football ever throughout his career. And if let's say the opportunity were to be availed to him in that sort of sense, so only time will tell. After all, we are only slightly over a month and a half until the January transfer window. We will get to see what the involvement in terms of transfer business, what clubs will do. Then you mentioned about that I should be excited about the international break. I'll give you a little bit of context. For example, particularly on this side of the continent, with the World Cup qualifiers sort of concluded for majority of teams, besides the teams that are involved in the playoff, including Nigeria, Gabon, and which other 2 teams? They elude my mind. But besides those teams, all the other teams are going to be playing international friendlies, the Uganda Cranes inclusive, in that conversation. So really, do bear with me when I say I'm not really that excited. I know for the context of Europe, the story is much different in that regard, but I know the context in that regard is very different, and there's still everything to play for in regards to the World Cup qualifiers, and perhaps it's cause for excitement. And when it's cause for excitement for whatever it is in that case, but also given how the period has come about with so many injuries to certain key players in different respective countries. For example, you feel for Graham Potter with the Swedish national team, and I've said this before, so allow me to repeat the same, that I do not know a plethora of talent in terms of Swedish forwards besides It's because now and would want to put some points on board. Doesn't do much to help your cause, really. When you look around many squads, it's the kind of feel that you have that there's been so many injuries going into this kind of international break. You look at England, they're going to, ideally, I would want to assume that they would have loved to be with a player like Noni Madueke, but whether you appreciate him for what it is or you have split opinion on that, I'm sure Thomas Tuchel would have loved to have him, but he's out injured. Same thing could be said for Norway. In the absence of Martin Odegaard, who they've missed for two consecutive international international breaks. I think that same applies for Kai Havertz for Germany. That same applies for Noni Madueke for England. Then when you go to Tottenham Hotspur, Kudus has been out injured. So of course Ghana may not miss him that much, but sometimes also the international break for many players, especially players that are playing, non-European players are playing in Europe. By non-European, I mean players that have come from other continents. So, for example, if you're from Jamaica, like you're Leon Bailey, if you're Muhammad Kudus, you're from Africa, you're Mo Salah, you're Amadou Diallo, you're Nusa Mazorui, you're Brian Mbomo, you're Wan Wissa, the international break is an opportunity. You're Thomas Partey at Villarreal and everybody else out there. The international break is that opportunity for you to go back home, whereas it remains a busy schedule of its own, depending on what country you represent and what they are involved in during that period of time. Thanks, Pedri, for the addition that it's Nigeria versus Gabon and then Cameroon versus Congo. That's a Democratic Republic of Congo, who are under the charges of former Uganda Cranes manager in Sebastian Desabre. So thank you so much on that one. So really, you look at it also in that sense that it's an opportunity for players to go back to check on their loved ones. It may be for a short while, but we know how worthwhile that can be. Some players can be a bit homesick, So I think it's really appreciated. I think he can be loaned for 3 months. I commented on that. Messi is the African qualifiers for the semi-final 1 leg or 2. I think it's too late. To the best of anyway, I won't say to the best of my knowledge, but I think it's 2. I think it's 2. Although usually playoffs are usually not double headers. They tend to give you 1 game at a neutral ground, but I need to confirm that whether the World Cup playoffs for Africa are a double header. As I'm not too sure about that, so I won't commit. I won't commit to that really. So I'll need to ascertain a little bit of extra information. But no, usually they're not. They're not a double header. I think you play 1 single game and then you go to the final game, because I do not think, given that the draws are happening in 2 weeks' time, by then we must have known who was actually advanced, who was actually qualified in that final slot. So I do not think there's time for it to be a double header, So it's actually 1 leg, and then the final, only 1 team will play on an international playoff. Yes, only 1 team. So from whatever the continent you are, if you fall within that category, only 1 team will be advancing to play in that final, and then we decide who goes. For example, the Uganda Cubs, that's the under-17 team. They had to go through a similar kind of playoff to qualify for the ongoing under-17 World Cup that is happening in Qatar, where Uganda lost in the first game they got beat by Canada by 2-1, and then the subsequent game was against Chile. Yes, was against Chile. They drew that 1-1, and I think their final game should be up against. Is it against Venezuela? I stand to be corrected, but that World Cup is also ongoing. To be honest, I've not watched a single game of the Under-17 World Cup. I've only glimpsed on a few highlights here and there through FIFA's or official social media handles and things like that. But from the looks of it, there's some pretty decent talent. Morocco registered, I think, the biggest margin victory in as far as the World Cup history is concerned. I think at that level, there's a team they beat up against by 16 goals. And I was like, what the hell? Literally 16 goals. Jesus, that's just one too many. That's just one too many. Almost the display board could no longer show what their goals are. Only one of them will play in the international playoffs. Yes, that's true. So, but briefly to look at the Under-17 World Cup that is ongoing in Qatar, I think I need to pick exactly what team that Morocco beat up against by those 16 goals, because that was history making within its own context. If I can find quickly, yes, they beat up against New Caledonia. Yes, it was against New Caledonia. They scored 16 goals. There were, let me see, how many different goal scorers. Surprisingly, there's no single hat trick. This is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There were 10 different goal scorers. 10 different goal scorers, but one of that was an own goal. So clearly, I'm here thinking to myself that maybe Uganda Cranes, if maybe the Uganda Cranes had first offer with that kind of team, maybe they too would have had the chance to, But actually, today was match day 3 for a majority of those groups, if not all. And from Group A, you have Italy advancing and South Africa in second place. Because remember, this Under-17 World Cup is in the similar format within which next year's FIFA World Cup for the men is going to be played. A whole host of 48 teams that then go in 12 groups. You have 2 teams advance. You go to the round of 32. From there, you get to the round of 16, quarterfinals, semifinals, and eventually at the final that will be climaxing towards the late November period. So you have Italy and South Africa from Group A. From Group B, you have Japan and Portugal. Unfortunately, Morocco have not made it through. Despite those, that emphatic win against the New Caledonia, sorry. And then in Group C, you have Senegal advanced as well as Croatia at the expense of Costa Rica and United Arab Emirates. That's the UAE. Then in Group D, you have Argentina and Belgium at the expense of Tunisia and Fiji. Then in Group E, you have Venezuela, you have England advancing at the expense of Egypt and Haiti. African teams being handed quite the beating in this one, apart from Senegal. Then in Group F, you have Switzerland and South Korea at the expense of Mexico and Ivory Coast. Then in Group G, you have Germany, who are the defending champions from 2023. And then you have Colombia advancing at the expense of North Korea and El Salvador. In Group H, you have Brazil and Zambia advancing at the expense of Indonesia and Honduras. In Group I, there's still a game to play, but currently United States and Czech Republic occupy the top 2 spots, with Burkina Faso in that place, level on points with Czech Republic. So and then Group G, Group K, and Group L, those still have games to be played before they determine who advances to the round of 32 in as far as the Under-17 World Cup is concerned. Away from that, let's quickly peep into what the weekend meant or the lessons that we did learn from the weekend following the kinds of results we saw. One, when you go in Germany, we saw that Bayern Munich are still invincible, although they dropped points for the first time this season when they drew against Union Berlin by 2-2. Then we saw Real Madrid in the same weekend register their first draw this season on March the 12th. Initially, they had played 11 games, won 10 and lost only one. So they had a point tally of 30. Now they dropped another 2 points. So that means they're at 31 points. We saw Barcelona winning by 4-2 against Celta Vigo, but that goal by Iglesias. I mean, what a brilliant strike that was. What a brilliant strike that was. Then, in the Italian Serie A, we saw AC Milan falter. We saw Inter Milan beat up against Lazio by 2-0 to reclaim their slot at the summit of the, of the Italian Serie A. We've seen that AC Roma are going to be quite a factor in the pursuit of silverware this season. If they can continue to be consistent, then they're obviously going to be in the title race. The beauty about the Italian Serie A this season is like, it looks like it's not a two-horse race, at least not at this stage in the season. And I think the same can be said for majority of, the major leagues across Europe, apart from Germany, where I feel that Bayern Munich are so far ahead of everybody else. But when you go to the French League One, you'll find that a team like Olympique Marseille are still are pushing really, really for that. And when you look at, I think, the disparity of points between the top team and the team that is pressed around 7th, which should be Lyon, in as far as things are concerned, in the French League One, you'll find that that gap is not too big. It's one that they can catch up to and give us quite the title race that we've not had many ages. So just to take a snapshot look at the French League One table, you'll find that PSG are ahead of the second and the place teams, Olympic, and by 5 points place team. And then when you go to Lyon, who are in 7th place, it's a disparity of 7 points. 7 points is not too many points after only 12 games are played in a season. So there's that food for thought on that front. Then when we go to the Italian Serie A, where, by the way, Atalanta have part ways with their manager in Ivan Juricic. Now, Ivan Juricic, you remember, when Danny De Rossi got sacked at AC Roma, I think after only 4 games in charge at the start of last season, it was Ivan Juricic that took over the reins, and things did not work out. He was shown the exit, and then the veteran, Claudio Ranieri, came and took charge of the team and did quite amazingly well to see them through the season. And they qualified for UEFA Europa League football, of course, missing out on the UEFA Champions League by, a mere whiskers. So, of course, they had to, because he came out of retirement, he was never going to take on the role, full time. And he only served his role as an interim. Then they brought in Ivan Juricic, Ivan Juricic, who, after being sacked by Roma, eventually landed himself a job with Southampton, where he did not also complete the season due to poor results. So I think for Atlanta, appointing Ivan Juricic was always going to be a huge gamble, especially when he was replacing a manager that had been at the club for about 9 years there, in Gianpiero Gasperini. What gets him sacked is he's had 2 victories only in the 11 games of the Italian Serie A, and a whooping 7 draws plus 2 losses. Now, I've said this before, that if any team were to finish a season unbeaten, really drawing all their games, there are high chances they could survive relegation, depending on how others perform. But I mean, that's not a good record for a team that has been challenging for, European football, season in, season out. I seem to remember the last season they played in the UEFA Champions League, and when you wind things further back, in 2023 they beat up against Bayer Leverkusen to win the Europa League, by 3-0. Ademola Lookman scoring a hat-trick. Who, by the way, Ademola Lookman had a spat with Ivan Juricic in that midweek game against, I think, in their 1-0 victory against Olympique Marseille. The scenes did not look pretty, We're talking about a player who Atalanta held on to dearly and denied him a potential move to Inter Milan because they stuck up to their guns, possibly demanding for about 45 million euros, while Inter Milan were only willing to offer, I think, up 40 or 42, thereabout. We know he put out a statement and things like that. It's never been pretty. So, but that spat between him and the manager, I did not think did anything to help both the player and the manager. But I think it did worse for the manager, So in that same game, he had scored a goal and it had been cancelled out. That's Ademola Lookman. But back to the gist of things. Okay, before that, because Ivan Juricic is a man that has already been replaced. Some teams waste no time in terms of firing and replacing. So once they showed him the exit, once they showed him the exit, they decided to appoint Rafael Palladino. Yes, Rafael Palladino is the man that they appointed to replace him as their new Atalanta coach. And then, still sticking with managers within the Italian Serie A, they've come out reports to suggest that tomorrow, Antonio Conte is destined for talks with the Napoli bosses, board and staff, to review the results after 11 games played so far this season. Of course, we know that they've stumbled here and there, including getting beat during the course of the weekend, which did not help their cause. I think they lost to Bologna by 2-0. Bologna, who are currently fifth on the league table with 21 points. Napoli are currently fourth with 22 points. However, I do not think there's cause for alarm for a manager who has one-year title the previous season and is currently fourth on that, season table with only 2 points behind the top two teams in Inter Milan and AC Roma, who all have a tally of 24 points. And then the team that is third, which is AC Milan, also has 22 points, and you have 22 points. You played 11 games, you've won 7, you've drawn 1 and lost 3. Of course, when you look at all the others, by AC Milan, in the teams that are above him, it's only AC Milan that have only lost 1 game and have drawn as many as 4 games. But the top two have 8 wins, 3 losses. Basically, that's what it is. So I do not think the gap is too big, that there is a gap too big for them to be concerned about his performances. Nonetheless, it's, I think, in the UEFA Champions League where you could have some really, really important questions to pose to Antonio Conte's side, because currently they are 24th on the UEFA Champions League tally, table, league format, they are 24th on the UEFA Champions League format table. And they've played 4 games, they've won 1, they've drawn 1, and they've lost 2, including that, bad loss against PSV Eindhoven by 6-2, I think. And then you had that, was it a goalless draw against Sporting? So in the UEFA Champions League, things have not really, really looked pretty, And we're talking about a manager that they tried to back, in the transfer window, bringing in the likes of Lucas Lorenzo from Udinese on loan, bringing in Rasmus Højlund, bringing in, what's his name? Kevin De Bruyne, who is currently injured, and things like that, So yes, there are questions bound to be asked of him. Now, in the last couple of hours, there had come out reports that apparently Antonio Conte is set to resign at Napoli. And according to Fabrizio Romano, the Napoli president, that is De Laurentiis, has played on reports that he is about to resign. He says it's a fake story. I'm proud to have a man like Conte next to the club and the squad. He's a guarantee for our club, our players, and our fans. And I think if you're a team like Napoli, unless there are other reasons pertaining to his behavior within the realms of the backroom environment, I do not think he's the kind of manager you'd sack based on results. If results are not going Antonio Conte's way, then it has everything to do with how the team is structured. Maybe he wants to refresh the team, but on the back of that Scudetto triumph, and even if he were to perform poorly, that they get eliminated from the UEFA Champions League at the league, phase, I wouldn't read too much into that. But also, he's never won the UEFA Champions League. He's one of those managers that is known for having the knack to win, but has never won the UEFA Champions League. So I think for Napoli and where they currently are, then I would rather focus on the league if we do crash out of the UEFA Champions League and qualifying for the UEFA Champions League the subsequent season and see how we go on to improve further. It's a pivotal period where they've missed their most lethal goal scorer, literally, in Romelu Lukaku through injury, which is why they had to make a dash for Rasmus Højlund to take him out on loan, and things like that. So, but that's the look of things in as far as the Italian Serie A is concerned. So, the defeat to Napoli at the hands of Bologna during the course of the weekend, I think only provided testament to say that look, to further cement that these guys can get beat, But for all the teams that are trying to push for the Italian Serie A title, losing 3 games in the opening 11 games is not the best of signs or report cards that you'd want to produce on your tally. And nonetheless, I think AC Milan also need to cut out on the draws. There's coming one too many draws for Massimo Allegri's side. So anyways, let's go briefly to the German Bundesliga before we take on the mantle from other teams. Other leagues. Of course, we have the Spanish La Liga to go and the Premier League. So then, quickly, like I said, the 6 points are clear at the summit. Pretty much, I think that's the biggest margin in Europe. In Europe's top 5 leagues, Arsenal had a similar one prior to match day 11, but it was cut to 4 points following Arsenal's draw against Sunderland and Manchester City's victory against Liverpool. So that was reduced to a mere 4 points. But that notwithstanding, like I said, Bayern Munich is the only team within Europe's top 5 leagues that is yet to lose a game this season, regardless. And that is all regardless who they played, So when I say regardless of who they played some big games, including playing against Borussia Dortmund. They also beat up against Borussia Mönchengladbach. So they beat up against some of the would-be big teams within the Bundesliga. And Vincent Kompany is looking to make as much history for himself as he can within the realms and the ranks of German football. Possibly look to outperform whatever his former manager in Pep Guardiola did between 2013 and 2016 at Bayern Munich in those 3 seasons. I think where he reached 3 consecutive semifinals to the finals. I think that was his only undoing in as far as the history of Bayern Munich football would be concerned. Anyways, but in second place is RB Leipzig with 22 points. Third place is Borussia Dortmund and VfB Stuttgart, third and fourth, respectively. Then quickly in the Spanish La Liga, like I've told you, Real Madrid are still at the summit. There of things, Asapi, Robert Lewandowski scored, a hat-trick over the weekend, a brace in the first half, and the last goal that ensured that Barcelona went away with all 3 points. Marcus Rashford provided a burst of assists in that game, while Lamine Yamal was the other goal scorer for Barcelona. Like I said, if you need to take a glimpse of that game, look out for Iglesias' goal, which had leveled the game to 2-2 in the 43rd minute. And then, of course, Sergio, I think, Carreira had scored to make it 1-1 at some point. Anyways, so in terms of the table, Real Madrid are only ahead of Barcelona with a mere 3 points. Mere 3 points. Real Madrid have 31, Barcelona have 28. Then below them is Villarreal, only 2 points behind Barcelona. Atletico Madrid in 4th place, only a point behind Villarreal, and then only 3 points behind the second place Barcelona. So that means there are only 6 points off the top of the La Liga standings. And then, Real Betis in 5th place. They are 5 points behind the 4th place team. So far, so good, I would argue in that. But as I said, so far, so good, I must say that it appears that I got my predictions wrong by judgment of the 11 games that have been played in the Spanish La Liga, because my prediction was that Barcelona were going to, reclaim the Spanish La Liga title. They really looked capable of that. Of course, injuries have hampered them. Injuries to Lamine Yamal here and there, and then of course Rafinha was very, very crucial to everything that they did within the realms of last season. And then, of course, I said they would reclaim it. I thought Atletico Madrid, given how well they had recruited during the course of the summer, they would come second and Real Madrid would come third. It looks like a flip of things with Real Madrid topping the table, Barcelona moving second, and Atletico Madrid as down as 4th. Anyways, that's there. Then quickly, let's go to the Premier League and look at what lessons did we learn from the weekend again, in as far as the Premier League is concerned. You see, you ought to be patient with us. The conversation started from the international break, dragged onto the top 5 major leagues, and now we get to speak the gist of the Premier League. Now, within the realms of the Premier League, what did we learn? Particularly, one, I thought we learned, one of the lessons that we learned, even though we have always known this, is that Chelsea can choose to be third and they win a game comfortably and that they dominate a fixture, although there was a questionable decision in that game that you thought perhaps Wolverhampton Wanderers maybe should have been awarded a penalty at some point in that game. But that notwithstanding, they won 3-0. Now, the challenge for Chelsea is that can they replicate these kinds of performances week in, week out? There's no evidence to suggest that they are capable of it if we base everything on everything that they have been able to do within just the ranks of the season. There's not much evidence to suggest that. We're talking about a team that lost to Sunderland. We're talking about a team that lost to Brighton, because when you look at that Premier League table, yes, they are third of the Premier League log, but they've already lost 3 games, they've lost 3 games. And those losses came against Man United, Sunderland, and Brighton, So, and then the other thing that we learned from the weekend was that Manchester City are as good as they think they are, and even better than many think they are, and particularly the reasons for that lay within the caliber of manager that they do have in Pep Guardiola, arguably one of the best football managers that has managed the game in modern day football. Then also the experience within that squad, and also the caliber of talent within that squad, the capabilities within the different individual players that are able to win you games within that squad. When you look at players like Phil Foden, when you look at players like Erling Haaland, when you look at a player like Tijani Riendas, Nico Gonzalez, who is really, really done a tremendous job filling in the void for Manchester City in the absence of Rodri, or Rodrigo Cascante, who has suffered injury setbacks, ever since returning from that anterior cruciate ligament injury that suffered last season. So, then the experience of players like Gianluigi Donnarumma, very, very good goalkeeper. Then that backline has Ruben Diaz, a leader within that backline, alongside Joshko Gvardiol, of course, John Stones, a leader himself, John Stones, senior player, one that has been there with Manchester City over the years and is literally one all that there is to win with Man City. Then you come to that midfield and you still have Bernardo Silva to help the likes of Nico Gonzalez, to help the likes of Tijan Reinders transition into whatever it is that Pep Guardiola wants them to transition into. And you look at Phil Foden, he looks to be gradually regaining the kind of form that we saw him have, I think, 2 seasons ago, and that kind of thing, or regain that, because I thought he was very, very excellent. When you go back to period between 2020 to 2024, thereabout, the end of the 2023-2024 season. So you have all that, and then you have a poacher, a hunter, a never miss kind of guy in Brad Erling Haaland. Forget that he missed a penalty against Liverpool, but he still scored. He opened the scoring in the 29th minute with that brilliant header of Matheus Nunes' cross. So he is that good, really. He is that really, really good, So in that perspective, in that breadth, you look at Manchester City, and they are a very complete team. But their biggest strength, away from the squad, lays within the manager, who has a very, very trustable deputy in Pep Linders, formerly, an assistant to Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool, where they won the Premier League title in 2020, the UEFA Champions League in 2019, they won, I think, the EFL Cup that was in 2024, and the FA Cup. So, so when you look at the collection of factors, and I've said this before, if Manchester City can be able to stay injury-free, because whereas they look that good a team, both on the pitch and off the pitch in terms of on paper, they're only a few injuries away from becoming less lethal than they currently are. And I've stressed this before. Like I said, go watch that video, about 19 minutes or so, about why I think Manchester City will be Arsenal's biggest title rivals. And I do a mention on this. Up front, they're a bit narrow because they have brought Erling Haaland, they have Jeremy Doku, they have Omar Mamosh, and some of the forwards that they do have. But I also said that if you can trust on any manager to have the ingenuity to come up with something out of his sleeves, then it's Pep Guardiola. He's no stranger to playing false nines, He can play the Phil Foden, he can play the Bernardo Silva, anybody that is available at his disposal at a given time. Nonetheless, I reckon that maybe during that period, the results may not consistently be as good as of when they have brought Erling Haaland, because he's literally carried them through every game this season, where they've equally so far lost 3 games. They lost to Tottenham Hotspur, they lost to Brighton and Hove Albion, then the other loss came against Aston Villa. That's in the context of Manchester City. But so I do wonder that if they were to lose Brad Erling Haaland, and as unfortunate as that may sound, not that I wish it on them, if they were to lose Brad Erling Haaland for a period of, let's say, 2 months, the same way, let's say, Arsenal have been without Kai Havertz, the same way they've been out with, Odegaard or Madueke, whichever you may choose. The same way Liverpool are been without Isak, the same way they are missing Jeremy Frimpong, the same way Tottenham Hotspurs have at some point missed the likes of Christian Romero. They are missing James Maddison, Rodrigo Bentancur, Dejan Kulusevski, who I think are very, very significant players within that team. Dominic Solanke. If they were to miss out on certain key players, the way they are without currently Rodri, because Rodri is the only significant player that has been absent through injury for Manchester City. If they were to be without Rodri, Brad Erling Haaland, Bernardo Silva, and possibly Tijan Reinders, can they still remain the same team? Can they still deliver the results, to push for this title, to push to help Pep Guardiola's, team push for the 7th league title under his charges in his 10th year? Because out of the other 9 seasons, he's won the Premier League title 6 times, but missing only out in 2017 when Chelsea won it under Antonio Conte. in 2019, sorry, in 2020 when Liverpool won it, and in 2025 when Liverpool won it still. So can they be that team if they were to be missing those key players? I have no reason to convince me that they could still hit the same levels in their absence. And that's, for me, that is where luck, comes in on that regard. Then also, because I believe that, them having a good striker in Brad Erling Haaland, that can win you a Premier League title. In having players consistently, one of the undoings, which I do not think is going to change really much about him, is how quickly Pep Guardiola rotates his team. He's the kind of manager who you'll give a 10 out of 10 kind of performance, and then next game he swaps you out. He's not afraid to do that. But that's at his discretion. Sometimes I felt that, especially in those early season losses against Brighton and Tottenham Hotspur, I did feel that he tinkered with the team, which cost him points. Anyways, but I thought there was lessons that we did learn about Manchester City in that emphatic, 3-0 victory against Liverpool, which is very, very, very important. Then also, I went to Arsenal. What did we learn from the weekend? One, we learned that Arsenal can concede more than a single goal in a Premier League game. Two, we learned that if you can be in their faces all throughout terms of physicality, fighting for it all, living unturned, then you can't get a result against Arsenal. That's, you can't get a draw that possibly on another day you could win. So, two, still what we learned from the weekend about Arsenal is that Mikel Arteta is still a stubborn man. Of course, he may have his convictions. Sometimes he may have his reasons that he cannot come out to justify for every decision he gets to make about the team to the fans, especially in the context of an ongoing game, because many of us were questioning why he did not make the changes that we thought he needed to make. Particularly for me, I think he should have brought in Christian Nogard. He should have brought on Miles Lewis Kelly to try and help with that counter press against Sunderland. But like I said, sometimes it's easier to say these things when the team has lost or dropped points, as opposed to when they win. But I think he himself will know, and he will feel that draw against Sunderland felt more like a loss, because in the context of which that equalizer came and how late it did come. So it felt like a dagger in the heart on that Arsenal side. Then also, we saw what we did learn from the weekend is how Arsenal badly missed the presence of Victor Gyökeres. I think for the opening 10 games of the season, they had sort of grown accustomed to playing with him. That one game away, you quickly saw how they missed him. Whereas Mikel Merino can play for you up front and quite effectively on a given day, we know that pound for pound, he's not the same kind of player or profile that Victor Gyökeres is. He's not going to offer you the same. He's not going to give you the same athleticism in terms of the counter press. He's not going to give you that, running down the channels kind of thing, drag away defenders and attract, a whole lot of attention the way Victor Gyökeres would command it. So we also learned that. And then also from the weekend, we learned that regardless of what happens at Arsenal or away from Arsenal, it is Arsenal that are going to get the criticism, that are going to get, the sensationalism of, and exaggeration of every single thing that they do, because they drew away to Sunderland, a team that has yet to lose a single game at home, and a team that have gone away to Chelsea and won a game of football, gone away to Nottingham Forest and won a game of football. And then suddenly, people want to make you believe that he's already lost it in Mikel Arteta. So there's context to that that I wouldn't want people to ignore. Then also so maybe he gets to learn from the mistakes in terms of his substitution choices over the weekend, and he gets to move on. The advantage for him, and I hope let this be the case in its trueness, or the manifestation of the words that we are yet to see, is the expectation that Noni Madueke, Kai Havertz, Gabriel Martinelli, and Martin Odegaard will be among the players that will be available for Arsenal's disposal in the aftermath of the international break, going into that North London derby away to Tottenham Hotspurs. Of course, one would wonder, what about Gabriel Jesus? Well, he's returned from injury and back with the team in full training, but I still feel he's far, far away from any level of fitness that would qualify him to start a game of football, later on come off the bench, and things like that. So, but given, let's see how he continues to recover and improve on himself. So those are some of the things we learned from the weekend. But we also learned that West Ham recorded their second victory or consecutive victory under Nuno Espirito. So that was in itself very, very impressive, I thought, to touch on. So really, those are some of the things that we learned from the weekend. Of course, I'm sure there are many, many more lessons that you may have learned, that you may have come across over the course of the weekend. But if you do have those lessons, do put them down in the comment section. And on that note, therefore, I want to thank our usual suspects that never miss a broadcast, and to say thank you to those of you that spare time to watch our broadcasts long after they've ended. We do not take your love and support and time for granted. It's always a pleasure to have your love and support. Just leave the comments down in the comment section. Like the videos. Continue to support what we do by you liking our videos, by you liking our content, by you commenting on that content, by you sharing that content. You help the algorithm distribute our content further to newer audiences. So please go ahead and do those things that put us in that bracket of suggested content. And yeah, we will continue to grow step by step. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Pedri, for the earlier engagement that you gave us. Quite worthwhile, us talking about the international break, the World Cup qualifiers, the playoffs, and things to do with that line. Barcelona, Lionel Messi, and everything that came with that, just a bit of the conversation. Otherwise, you've been a wonderful audience. Allow me to wish you a blessed night, because I'm already feeling sleepy, and yet I still have work to get done. But anyways, thank you so much. I wish you a blessed night. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning at 9. Let's meet tomorrow. Bye for now.